Right then, we'll get cracking straight away. So got the agenda on the screen here, so I'll go through introductions very quickly. We'll also go through understanding Microsoft Copilot as a product and as a technology. And we'll look at using Copilot to retrieve internal company information quickly and efficiently, leveraging Copilot for sales opportunities, and also we'll take a bit of a look into analyzing data with Copilot as well. Well, as always, we've got a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to pop in any questions into that Q&A. I'll do my best to make sure those are answered for you. So super quick introductions to myself. So my name is Robert Thomas. I'm head of modern work here at Valto. Got a little QR code there to my LinkedIn page. If you scan that, you can also get through to the Valto LinkedIn page. We've put quite a lot of content out several times a day. There's a few bits on the YouTube channel as well, which I'll mention towards the end of the webinar. So give it a scan and connect up if you want. Brilliant. So first bit is probably just understanding Microsoft Copilot. I won't go too much into detail. I think everyone has probably seen lots of webinars and documents and videos kind of going through Copilot as a technology. But I'll probably just touch on some of the more important pieces really, just so you've got like a high level overview of what it is we're dealing with when it comes to Copilot for Microsoft 365. Okay, so how can Copilot for Microsoft 365, how can it benefit you or benefit your organization? So Copilot basically functions as an AI virtual assistant. Basically, you can use it as like a personal admin assistant. So you invoke Copilot when you want it to help with a repetitive task and reduce overhead and free up time. The whole purpose is to speed up repetitive daily tasks or perform jobs that normally would take you longer in real world practice. And the whole thing is to save time really there. So it's still early in the journey, but this is the beginning of like freeing up time to work on more productive tasks. The product itself, just like 365 was at the beginning, it's just going to get better and better. It's going to have more features in. It's going to be more accessible to everyone. It's definitely a technology that's ramping up and has become super popular. And again, it's kind of one of this particular one, Microsoft 365. It's one of many Copilots available across the Microsoft technology stack. And it's a product that really produces more results the more you use it. One thing it's worth mentioning is it's not a tool that's a replacement for staff members or individuals. It's simply designed as an AI assistant, and it's designed to save time, as I mentioned before, and then boost that productivity and creativity in those daily tasks. So things like creating content, emails, presentations, and documents, or analyzing data in spreadsheets, and then producing reports, all those kind of core functions that you expect to rely on with a Gen AI assistant. Okay, so why choose Copilot for Microsoft 365? So basically, the way that it works is Microsoft take a copy of the low-level language model, something like ChatGPT-4, and integrate it into their own environment. It's then got deep integrations into the Office 365 apps everyone's used to using. So I think about 1.2 billion people worldwide use some form of Office product, if you like. So it's deeply integrated into our daily workflows. Everyone is familiar with how those tools work, and we're doing the same repetitive tasks every day. So with Outlook, we're reading through loads and loads of emails every single day, loads of different threads. Our inboxes, probably for everyone, are going to get quite full. Excel, I'm sure everyone at some point has had to analyze some sort of data, run formulas, and produce some sort of graphs, which then later go into a presentation or a report. And then obviously Teams, since the pandemic, there's been a massive digital transformation across lots of companies and organizations worldwide. I think everyone's using Teams, and quite often, we're generating meeting notes and follow-up actions. So how can Copilot sort of integrate into that and speed up that process? Because it's probably something everyone's doing. So on the diagram on the right-hand side, we've got some different components that sort of make up Copilot for 365. Obviously the low-level language model, which I mentioned, the web grounding, Microsoft Graph, so how it can interact with all of our data that's stored in Microsoft 365. Also the internet as well, so it will go outside to the web and try and get in additional information on third-party context. And then probably the big one really is enterprise-grade security. That's probably one of the real big reasons why you might choose Microsoft 365 Copilot over than just maybe something like ChatGPT, which a lot of people are already using. So 70% of people are already using some form of AI in the workplace already. So that's a massive increase. If you think how long it took to people to fully adopt the telephone system and the internet, you're talking tens of years, whereas Copilot, it's got to its first, or AI, I should say, got to its first 100 million users within like 6 months. So again, it's a massive adoption of this technology. And of that 70% of people using some form of AI in the workplace, they reckon there's about 11% of data being copied into ChatGPT that's actually classed as confidential. So one thing with Copilot is it never uses company data to train its AI models. It's got seamless integration with existing Microsoft security products, such as Sentinel, Intune, and Microsoft Purview. And just like with your Office 365 files, everything's contained within your organization and tenant. So you get that extra security and governance wrapped around that product, which is probably one of the main reasons to move forwards with this type of, or with this version of AI, really. And then at the end there of the diagram, we've got Copilot Studio. So we won't go too much into that today. It's probably going to be a separate webinar, but Copilot Studio is a platform where we can actually go and develop our own Copilots for use with inside our organizations. And again, we can tap into all sorts of different data sets then and increase productivity. Right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so a very quick demo. So obviously Microsoft 365 integration example. So we've got Copilot for Web and Copilot within Outlook. So one of the main things is contextual assistance. So you can see on the video here, you've got Copilot for Web, where you can basically ask it to draft you a friendly email. You can do the same within Copilot for Outlook, and it'll go ahead and create that email for you. Where we get to contextual assistance is Copilot actually knows what's inside your email thread. It knows kind of the data that you're working with. So we can go one step further. We can actually get Copilot to summarize the content of the email because it knows what's actually inside there, the way it hooks into Microsoft Graph. Okay, so next one, we've got data retrieval. So we'll go into some demos here of how we can actually extract information relevant to our organization by using Copilot 365. So let's go ahead. So in this example, we're going to try and use data retrieval from the context of maybe a project management team. This is going to kind of crawl through Teams posts, SharePoint content, emails and Exchange. Now, for most organizations, they're probably heavily embedded into the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So things like Teams, SharePoint, Exchange Online, there's lots of like rich content in there that's specific to things like projects, for example. So here in Valto, we almost have like project posts and channels, and a lot of our customers work in the same way as well. They have some sort of entity and team that's relevant to that project, and there could be hundreds, maybe even thousands of Teams posts with updates from engineers, developers, salespeople, whatever's relevant to your industry around that project. So when you're using Copilot, rather than trying to search for that data manually, which obviously if you're doing this job every day could take tens of minutes, maybe even an hour over the course of the day, the way that Copilot can leverage that information and present it back to you in some sort of summarized, readable format really is a powerful feature. So let's just go ahead and actually enable this demo. So in this example, I'm just going to type into Copilot, can you find information on the A-Ferry sales opportunity? I want to understand where this project kind of stemmed from, really. So it's going to go ahead and find all of that good stuff across the documents, emails, and meetings. And straight away, it's come back with a managed service proposal for this project. It's even found the quotation, and it's highlighted the salesperson that presented that quotation to the customer. It's obviously named them out there. And it's found emails and managed service agreements as well that were wrapped around that project. And it's also linked in some data at the bottom of that prompt as well. So straight away, I've got a good understanding of where that project kind of began without having to search through Teams. Now I can actually type in, can you find the A-Ferry workshop report? So I can maybe go and find that, okay, well, so what did the consultant do with this customer? how do they kind of construct the project? So the feedback that we get, so it's gone and found that workshop report, it's linked that in the prompt, and it's even provided the author, Steve Glasspool, and Will Jones, who actually authored that document. And it's also found the meeting and the attendees when that workshop report was handed over to the customer, and provided details on that project as well. So next I'm actually going to ask where this project is up to. Again, with 60 to 100 projects in flight, finding that information can take a long time by going through, project trackers, dynamics, spreadsheets, whatever system you use. So for this, it's kind of brought back the information around the project impact assessment. It's brought back the RAID log with the project management team are using. And it's actually found some emails and outlined the delivery timelines of when this project is going to commence. So again, we're just building up that knowledge case, and we're bypassing all of that old way of working where we've got to kind of search and try and analyze that data. So next we can actually say, well, can you provide me some more details on some of the issues with this project? And it's got that contextual awareness to actually go through and find some of that information. So again, it's come back and found that there's been potential issues on things like device enrollments. So again, it's provided a description of some of the users were having issues with their personal devices, and this was not anticipated in the project. If you look at line item 2, it's come back with some issues around a SQL database access. So the finance team were having trouble accessing this database post-migration. And it's also reported back that there's been like user response delays across there as well. And it's also maybe highlighted that managed IT support, which was discussed, could be relevant to this type of issue as well. And then we've got some more information here on the project timelines and the UAT acceptance testing. So in my next prompt, we're going to try and look at if we can get some more information relating to those issues specifically. So we're about to go through. There we go. Just type in, can you provide an update on the resolution of the SQL database and access issues? So again, it's coming through the documents and emails and all of the Teams chat. So in this instance, it's brought back slightly different data, but those issues probably weren't resolved. So again, it understands the context of what you're asking. So it's bringing back information that's relevant to the SQL database access. But I think in example, the project's not gone any further. That's why it's not revealing any more information. So in the next phase, it will probably be bringing back knowledge base articles and updates from engineers. And we probably get some additional information off the back of that as well. So you're able to see how easy it is for like a project management personnel officer to actually go through and extract the information from the organization just using Copilot. So again, we didn't need to go into dynamics. We didn't need to go into any sort of project logging sheets or RAID logs. We were able to query all of that information with some really simple prompts and get a full kind of end-to-end view of how that project started and where we're currently up to now. Again, if this is kind of your job, as a project management officer, then this is going to save you time every single day doing those repetitive tasks, and it will allow you more time to go and do some more add value. Cool. So in next example, we'll look at some Copilot for sales scenarios. So we'll just go on to the next screen. There we go. So on this slide here, we basically kind of got a typical workflow of how somebody in sales may use Copilot across the various 365 applications. So we start from left to right. We've kind of got the scenario where maybe we're surfacing new leads. So as a business development manager, Hannah may check her inbox first thing in the morning to try and review some of the unread emails and look for any potential leads within there. So in this example, Hannah's got 50 unread emails. Some of the prompts that she could throw in could be like, show me emails from new senders. And it would basically, Copilot would help filter those results, moving some of the noise from typical emails and junk were not related to the search. And then the next phase, when we're going through specific leads, we can put prompts in like invite Mark to Teams meetings to learn about our service offerings. In the next piece, we've kind of got preparing the sales pitch, perhaps. So we might be leveraging Copilot across Teams, PowerPoint, and Word. So again, Hannah can prepare a sales pitch by recapping the customer's requirements from a workshop or a particular pre-sales calls, for example, by recapping the notes and organizing those into bullet points and actions. and asking Copilot to provide any more information on how we can sell to the customer. And then the next piece we've got, maybe you can create a PowerPoint deck from this template using the workshop report. So we can almost kind of create a sales pitch deck from that report to then replay back to the potential sales opportunity. The next piece, we've got sort of capturing meeting notes. So again, leveraging Copilot for Teams and Outlook. So after hosting maybe a sales pitch in Microsoft Teams, all of the minutes are captured during the recording, and Copilot helps with the meeting recap piece. So you can put some prompt into Copilot for Teams and say, recap the requirements from the meeting. And you'll get a nice list of bullet points, actions, and takeaways to then maybe follow up into a next meeting. So you can create a new follow-up email, and again, use some prompts on there to try and generate those emails to the customers. So let's go into an actual live example. So we're going to use Copilot for Web, Copilot for Outlook, and some Copilot for Teams. So on the right-hand side, we've basically got a sales opportunity come through for a SharePoint intranet solution. So it's come through, it's quite a large email, and we can see the user who sent through the request. And again, we just scroll to the top. It's quite a long email, so we can just basically use Copilot to summarize that. So we can actually just get really quick, what's this customer, who are they, what are they looking for? It's provided it needs a SharePoint intranet, it needs some integrations, and there's a tight deadline of 3 to 4 months because their current file server's got performance issues. They need to move their data to 365. Now, before we go back to the customer, we can actually use things like Copilot for Web to try and leverage a better insight into maybe producing a sale. So based on the information that came through on the email, we can ask Copilot how we could basically provide information on a company that would help us sell an IT project. So what would be important to the customer? Can you also provide information on the contact? So we can paste that into Copilot for Web. So straight away, it's come back with a decent amount of information. So we just scroll back up to the top. You can start to analyze what Copilot's come back with. So it's told us about the company. It's given us a background, where they're based, what they specialize in, what they pride themselves in. So maybe what's important to that company. So a strong global presence, committed to sustainability, and 100% solar powered and single-use plastics. It's even outlined based on what it's found, maybe some bullet points on how it can sell an IT project to that particular company. So emphasize your IT solutions are tailored to meet specific needs, talk about quality and reliability and sustainability, global reach and scalability, and customer support. So again, this is all based on what it's found when it goes out to the web, and it's crafted a response that maybe help tailor our sales pitch to this company. And in this case, it's actually found information on the person who sent through the sales lead. So it's found out they've got a background in recruitment within the construction industry, and is known for determination and direct approach, focusing on understanding clients' needs and delivering results where that person may reside and some of their hobbies. So now we've got that background information. We can then go back into Outlook, and then we can leverage Copilot to draft a response to that sales opportunity. So again, perhaps you've got writer's block. You can just say draft an email to say we'd be happy to set up a call and propose a Microsoft strategy workshop, as this looks to be quite a complex project. I'll offer some dates next week to book a meeting with the customer. So we can go and ask Copilot to generate that. Now, I often get writer's block anyway, so I've found this feature quite useful day to day. It does save time overall. And then Copilot's come back with us with a suggested response to that potential customer. So we've got some options. We can keep it, we can discard or retry, or we can maybe just select from the options, and we can maybe change the tone of the email. So we can make it sound a bit more formal. This is the first time we've spoken to this potential customer before, so we can ask Copilot to revamp that email. And I've got access to previous versions as well if I want to go back. So if I'm happy with that email, I can select keep it, and then I can just add the finishing touches, such as hi, Mr. Customer, and kind regards, Rob. There we go. Just go and send that email. Cool. So now we're sort of in the next phase of the sale. So we've potentially had a sales and consultancy call with the customer. We've gone through some detailed requirements and we've recorded the meeting within Microsoft Teams. Now we can use Copilot within Teams to leverage some of that information, to recap the meeting, to produce some detailed notes for the meeting and some potential outcomes as well. So on this screen, we're able to capture the speakers. AI's generated some topics within the call that we can kind of jump to quickly. And we'd also have some chapters as well, where basically the call is broken down into smaller topics, which we can kind of jump to again within the meeting. The main piece though is probably the AI notes, so where we can actually recap the meeting. So again, based on all of the transcript and everything that was said in the call, Copilot's gone and created some meeting notes on all of the topics that we've discussed. So again, quite a lengthy meeting. This is something that would take an awful long time. Previously, hand typing notes into OneNote whilst trying to concentrate on what the customer was requesting or whatever I was demoing at the time. And it's even created some follow-up tasks there as well. In this particular example, we can access the original transcript, which we can copy. So now what we can do is we can copy these notes. Oh, now we can actually do something with them. So traditionally, I would just stick them in OneNote and I'd try and write a report from scratch. But now we can leverage an existing report template. Because as long as those notes are well polished, we can drop those notes into the departmental discovery. So that was the session that we had with the customer. And again, we can maybe tidy up the notes with Copilot and then drop them into the document. So previously, this was something that would take me an awful long time to kind of recompile my notes from OneNote into something that was a bit more professional and something that could go into, a sales proposal or a workshop document. Now I can kind of almost drag and drop the contents of those as well. Next, I can actually use those notes to then maybe create some recommendations for this customer. So what project and deliverables are we going to recommend to this customer to solve their business case or to solve their business problem? So now, again, I can go and grab those notes from the meeting and I can ask Copilot to format them in a way that we could create deliverables and recommendations. So I'm going to grab those meeting notes and I'm going to ask Copilot to format those into a recommendation or a requirements table with some specific columns. So create an improvements table for my notes, create 3 columns, action name, description, and the time saved. Let's go and generate that. And again, we've got a nice preview of our table there within Copilot. We just need to either download that or take a copy and then just simply add our branding and formatting it into our document. So I'll download this. Make sure it's the right one. Then I'll apply it into Microsoft Word. There we go. So now we've got the improvement actions table embedded into the document. And again, this was something that I would just take hours to pull out all of the requirements from a recorded meeting, or maybe, previously if I did the meeting in person, it's probably saved me several hours just extracting that information to add to an improvements matrix to then present back to the customer as this is the solution to your business problem, and this is how we can move forward with a project or consultancy or whatever we're selling. Let's go to the next one. There we go. So now we've got a PowerPoint presentation. So rather than presenting that whole document back to the customer as a proposal, it's probably better to summarize this into a PowerPoint presentation. So you can see I've asked Copilot to create a presentation based on that consultancy document that we created from the notes. Gone ahead and created 33 slides based on the topics and the sections it's generated from that report. Now, the PowerPoint presentation is not absolutely perfect, but we find it's best to use a PowerPoint presentation that's kind of got your business and branding templates built into it. And then we can then basically fine tune that presentation to make sure that it's appropriate for our customers. Yeah. So we've got a full-fledged presentation here based on that document, and this is what the salesperson can then present back to the customer. There we go. So just go back here a minute. So in this example, you've seen how we can kind of go take on the journey as a sort of a salesperson and a consultant right from when an inquiry comes in, and how we can leverage Copilot basically across all of the Office apps that we might use day to day. Again, you can see how we save time with the meeting notes, the workshop report, right through to the presentation and the pitch deck. These are things that, as a consultant and a salesperson, you probably be doing every single day. And having this sort of AI assistant and companion, you're just getting rid of the repetitive and maybe the slightly more mundane tasks of filtering out information, recompiling it, and then putting it into something that's presentable. I think that's a common workflow that everyone can kind of associate with. And this really does enhance that experience and shave time off as well. Cool, so let's look at some analyzing data examples. So predominantly this is going to be Excel based. I've got two examples to run through. Hopefully these are examples that you can also relate to as well. So in the first one, we've got some feedback surveys. So we're going to look at some data insights, pivot chart generation, and again, it's all based on Copilot Excel. So this feedback survey is actually based on a cinema chain. It's a completely fictional one. We've got things like the customer name, the location of the cinema, your price score, your film selection score, food and beverage, customer service score, annual visits to the cinema, membership, that kind of thing. It's completely fake. I actually generated that data by using Copilot anyway. So I went into Copilot for Web and said, create a sample spreadsheet with 200 samples of feedback data for a cinema. And it's come back and presented some data there, which we can download it as an Excel. I've then gone back to Copilot and said, change the sample to include the following columns. So to actually basically add more data to it. And again, Copilot's created a nice preview of the sample data there. Just make sure that it's got all of the columns that we said. And it's also asked, do we want to download the data? So we can download that as an Excel file. And again, that's just saved me so much time just by creating a sample spreadsheet as well. So it's quite good if you need to create tables and things, you can instruct Copilot to do that. So if we open Copilot on the right-hand side, there's quite a lot of pre-existing prompts there that it recommends that you should use when you're using Copilot for Excel. So I'm going to use show data insights. So this will just go off and find some recommended insights that it finds within the Excel data set. So it's based on the active tab that you've got open. So just make sure you're using the right tab. And straight away, it's come back with some annual visits by customer service score. So how often is the customer score affected by the number of visits to the cinema chain? And we can add that to a new sheet within Excel. It's created the pivot table and also created a nice bar chart there as well. Let's go back to the data. So you can also say, can I see another insight? So it's found food and beverage score by membership holder. So how does having a membership affect the score of concessions, basically? Let's go and try and ask it something as well. Maybe just type in. So which cinema has the lowest number of visitors? And again, this is where it's got that contextual awareness. It knows what type of data is in there. It knows what columns are in the table, and it can go and produce basically a table of that data based on a request, and we can populate that into the spreadsheet with the click of a button. Again, these are all things that you might do with spreadsheets that may just take a couple of minutes each time. We can now do with the click of a button based on recommendations and some prompts as there as well. So we can say which cinema has the lowest average price score. Perhaps we want to analyze where people are feeling that the cinemas are most expensive. We can go and get that data. Again, it's come back as well and said, do you want to add that to a sheet? Let's just try one more. And then summarizing using pivot tables or charts. So again, a bit like the data insights, it will go and find a recommended data point to maybe suggest to put into the into the Excel document. And again, we've got a pivot chart based on average scores from price, film selection, food, beverages, and across all the other columns as well. So we can use that into our report. Okay, let's try some formatting. So if we go back to the table. There we go. So you can see it's actually got several prompts there already that are suggesting to things like suggest conditional formatting. So we can say highlight cells in column J if the cell contains no. So again, we can use Copilot to go and highlight that. Again, it's something that's quite easy to do, conditional formatting, but it does save time just typing it in rather than going to create a quick conditional formatting rule in there as well. And we've got options to revert that back, or we can ask it to change different colors and so forth. There we go. So these are all things that most people probably do every day. So I'm quite tech savvy, but Excel probably isn't my workflow that I use every single day for my kind of interactions with 365. But these are all things I often have to go off to a website and I might have to Google, how do I do this formula or how do I do that? And I may be sort of searching 3 or 4 sites until I find the right answer. So again, just having this in Copilot, I know where I want to get to with my data insights or the data that I want to present back. This is just a much quicker way of getting the result without having to sort of go and find the formula or the function, then test it out, then apply it to my data, then make sure it's correct. I think doing that over and over again probably takes me a few hours when I'm going through some data analysis pieces in Excel, whereas with Copilot, I was able to condense what probably took 3 hours on a spreadsheet down to sort of 15 minutes, because it was able to just go and produce those formulas for me and provide the pivot tables and all of the analytics. Okay, so the next example, we've got a SharePoint site structure. So again, we'll just go through data insights and pivot chart generation. So we've got SharePoint site's name, department, content owner, restricted or open, or Teams communication. So SharePoint intranet requirements, this is simply a list of sites that we need to create to build a company-wide intranet. If you think about an intranet, they consist of marketing, sales, finance, HR, each of which is going to require its own site or web page. So for large projects, this can be quite a manual task. And obviously the analysis piece can take quite a while. But beyond this demo, there's obviously lots more requirements and variables that you'd have in the analysis sheet, and Copilot would be able to handle those. So again, we could highlight possibly all of the teams, all of the sites that may be a Microsoft team and not a communication site. So we can understand what's the ratio between those as well. You can also, again, similar to the previous demo, we can summarize this data with a pivot chart and get a summary of some of the information on there as well. Let's go and add that to the sheet. So we can see which department has the most number of sites. Go back to that sheet as well. Let's go and ask it something else. So we can also have a look at the percentage distribution of restricted or open sites. So again, permissions is quite important with SharePoint intranets. I would expect it to be around 50-50, given that most departments are going to have public-facing sites and then ones that are internal for working documents. So we can see it's around 51-49%. So somebody as a consultant analyzing the project, the data there doesn't look too bad. We can probably move on to the next stage in terms of architecture. Just go and show the data insights to see what it brings back for this particular piece. Yeah, we've got a similar type of data, so let's go and try something else. So which content owner has the most sites? So each content owner is in charge of updating particular sites when it comes to the SharePoint intranet project. So we could use Copilot to make sure that that wasn't distributed unfairly, for example. So we can see this person has 8 SharePoint sites associated to them in terms of content creation. So again, we might need to go back to it and make sure that that's correct, or readjust the project to accommodate additional hours for that person to create their sites. There we go. And we can use Copilot to create a table based on the number of sites per person. And it'll go and create an additional table on another sheet, listing all of the content owners and the number of sites which they're responsible for. So again, we can see there's a couple, most people are on 1. We can see there's a few people with 8, or even 7 there as well. Again, we can use Copilot to sort this table, so we can sort by highest to lowest. Again, it's quite simple, obviously, to do that manually, but it's good to use Copilot to apply it to this data set, just so we can see it in action. Back to the main table. And then we've got show a suggestion for a formula column. So in this example, it's come back with an if statement. And it's going to output whether the SharePoint site is secure or public. So it's basing that on whether it's restricted or not. So straight away, we can have a look at our SharePoint sites that maybe have a secure policy applied to them, or those that are public facing. So that then may affect what type of information we would migrate to this SharePoint site, or the information that we would publish within those sites. And again, we could use conditional formatting to highlight column F if the cell contains the string secure. There we go. Brilliant. We'll just go back one. Yeah, so there we go. So data analysis within Excel. So again, as I said before, I'm a technical person, but not using Excel like religiously every single day. I often know the outcome of the data that I'm looking for, but it's, you know, trying to get to the formulas that I need, or remember how to do certain functions and different bits. This just saves me time overall when using tools that I'm maybe not so familiar with. So Copilot Excel works really well for someone like myself. Okay, so it's worth providing some additional info as well. So based on some of the demonstrations that I've showed today, we've got the Microsoft Scenario Library. This is quite good just to get some functional scenarios, or ones that may be specific to business units. Sometimes there's things like downloadable content in there. So if I go on finance, I can look at accounting, document evaluation. It's got a scenario guide which you can download. Then it's got different things that we can do with Copilot. So summarizing requirements, discovering documents. And as we scroll down, sometimes they can get a little bit more complex. If I just choose another scenario from the menu, again, we've got things where we can maybe plug into Copilot Studio, where we can connect Copilot to external data sources. So things like SAP, SQL databases, Salesforce, all those kind of tools that businesses are using where their information is stored, and we can plug it directly into Microsoft Copilot. Again, and we can apply some Gen AI to that as well. Okay, so this is probably worth mentioning as well when you're using Copilot for these real world examples. This is something that Microsoft created. So again, another lovely acronym to remember. We've got the GCSE prompt framework. This is all about kind of helping you properly construct prompts so you can get the best results from AI, and it kind of prevents, you know, generating maybe incorrect or unhelpful responses. So it's kind of broken down into 4 things, hence GCSE. So we've got the goal. So what do you want? Why do I need it? Where to look? And how do I need it? So based on expectations there as well. I think we're so used to kind of using like Google, you know, search engines. We kind of shape our language to accommodate those when we're using things like search engine results. So a lot of us kind of struggle when we kind of have to apply, you know, natural language when we're using AI to produce the results that we need. So that kind of does, you know, it is a habit and does require a little bit of a behavioral change. If I go to the next slide here, we've got an example here as well. So it's basically all about including the right prompt ingredients. So in terms of goal, context, source, and expectations, you can match up the colors. So in terms of goal, we want to generate 3 bullet points. In the context, it's for a meeting with client X to discuss the phase 1 brand campaign. In terms of the source, it's about focusing on email and Teams chats since September. And the expectations is to use simple language so I can get up to speed quickly. So we're basically telling Copilot to present it in the most simplest way possible when it presents the data back to us. And then just to finish off on a few bits, so we obviously got the Copilot workshop and adoption. So this is obviously all about helping customers understand their requirements for Copilot. So if I just go into the more details, so he's got obviously the objective is to basically create a Copilot and AI strategy workshop to ensure that you understand the services provided by Microsoft 365 Copilot. And that helps you explore the ways in which that you or your organization can benefit from the growth and the efficiency that aligns to your company's objectives. So looking there as well, so we're obviously a Microsoft solutions partner for modern work. Microsoft has recognized us as a specialist in adoption and change management. So we've been here and done this before with Microsoft 365. We've moved customers into the cloud and SaaS world from kind of traditional on-premise resources. We've helped customers get through the pandemic with digital transformation, and now we're doing exactly the same thing with Copilot adoption strategy there as well. So we've got free Copilot training from Microsoft when you purchase 10 Copilot licenses with Valto. We also provide things like free security assessments when you procure your licensing through us. So that's one of the add values that we provide to customers. And then the objective, as I mentioned before, with the Copilot workshop is to ensure you understand the services and realize the value Copilot can bring to your organization. And then following a workshop, we've obviously got things like fixed price setup and adoption strategy packages, starting from the price there. And then obviously we've got an agenda of kind of typical things that we go through in a Copilot and workshop and adoption workshop. Just make sure my slides are still there. Cool. And then obviously on to Q&A. Oh, I just had a message to say my PowerPoint presentation's disappeared off the screen. Just bear with. Okay, wow, my PowerPoint's crashed, but yeah, basically we've got some time reserved for Q&A. If you want to fire into the chat, I'll go and answer those questions for you. So one of the questions is, do all people in Microsoft Teams meetings require Teams Premium license to utilize Recap, or is it enough if only one participant has it? If you want to access the Recap function, you need to have Teams Premium licensing or a Copilot for 365 licensing to basically access the Recap and the AI notes. So yeah, everyone will need to actually access that. We'll need that license. Okay, any more questions? Someone said, can it recognize handwritten notes? Copilot itself probably can't recognize handwritten notes, but there is features built into like the Office, the OneNote app, where it can scan handwritten notes and then convert them into OCR. Someone says, what would be your response to colleagues who are concerned about this, meaning job losses? Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, Copilot for Microsoft 365 is just, I see it as a big enhancement into the Microsoft 365 apps that we're already using. It should be looked at as an AI assistant designed to save time so you can go off and do more add value tasks. That's really how I look at it as well. It really saves me time so I can go and do more meaning and constructive work rather than spending hours in documents and meetings and drafting notes. And it's obviously finding information as well that can take a long time. This has been a big help in kind of bringing information from kind of a prompt-based interface as opposed to like searching across lots of different systems. Someone else said, how can we customize Copilot for our company's data and workflows? I think one of the things that I mentioned before was Copilot Studio. So that's one of the ways that we can basically create Copilots for our organization. So we can use Copilot Studio and we can connect Copilot to different data sources. And then we can use things like Power Automate and low-code workflows to then produce those results. You can also use Azure AI Data Studio, again, which is a lot more granular, gives you a lot more control on the responses that you're going to get. So maybe if you were producing a Copilot that works with sensitive information, you would probably use Azure AI Studio. Another question here. So how can Copilot help with data privacy? One of the things with Copilot is making sure that data privacy is configured at the beginning. So you can enable things like information protection to basically mask and redact certain data when you're implementing Copilot across your environment. I guess especially if the data is subjected to GDPR and HIPAA and those kind of things. Then you can implement things like policies to prevent the semantic index from crawling certain content. So it's never going to be revealed to the end user, if you like. Have we got any more questions? Okay. Well, so just waiting see if there's any more questions pop up. It's probably just worth mentioning the Valto YouTube channel. So obviously we've got tons of how-to videos and webinars on there as well, all to do with AI, Copilot, Power Apps, SharePoint, and a lot more. This webinar will be posted onto that YouTube channel, but we've got a lot of ad hoc content going on there almost every single day. We've got MVPs posting a lot of things on there. You'll also see those advertised on our LinkedIn page as well if you scan the QR code. So it's worth subscribing to that. And you'll get lots of in-depth knowledge and more real-world examples of how you can implement these Microsoft products within your organization. Someone said, can Copilot be used in a school environment by students? Yeah, 100%. So we can create Copilot, again, to focus on specific Microsoft 365 content. So that's when the data privacy is important, to make sure that things are segregated so students can access the right information. You can also use the Copilot for Studio and Azure AI Studio, where you can perhaps go and create more Copilots. And again, because you're dealing with students or vulnerable people, that kind of thing, you can be really specific about the responses that students can get back. You can really apply governance and restrictions around there, and you can make the Copilot a safe tool to be consumed by students, vulnerable adults, and different people. So yeah, 100%. Someone said, what would be the prerequisites you'd recommend an organization have from a digital perspective from implementing Copilot? There's lots of like Copilot assessment things out there that I think a lot of partners have been doing. The main thing again is just probably going back to the data privacy, just making sure that the any locations and files and things are identified earlier on, just to make sure that they're properly redacted. And then probably the training and adoption is the real big piece. You know, we often talk about you've got writer's block, and Copilot comes along, and AI, you then kind of that shifts, and you've now got like prompt block, just feeding as much information to the users and consumers as possible on how they could use this product, and then conducting workshops with departments. So at Valto, we're almost customer number 0. We've been doing all of the internal like Copilot and AI adoption workshops with each department to understand where we can use AI to make our processes and workflows and day-to-day just more efficient and streamlined, again, to release more time to do more add value tasks. That's probably the best way that I could describe how you would implement it. Someone said, when searching through company documents. That's an unfinished one. Someone says, is there an age restriction on its use? I assume that's to do with the school environment. There's no age restriction on obviously consuming the technology. It's going to be purely based on the type of information that's presented back to the students. But I guess within a school setting, there's probably going to be confidential material on the tenancy. Obviously, that just needs to be removed from the semantic index. And then someone's mentioned pricing as well, assuming it's for the school. At the moment, Microsoft Microsoft require you to purchase the license up front for the entire year, but that is going to change at some point as adoption increases. There's no doubt that that's going to follow suit with all of the other products. If you need some pricing, then I recommend that you just contact hello@valto.co.uk and provide a bit more context on the number of users, and then we can certainly look at probably the best pricing for your scenario, really, because we can work with the numbers on there as well, and then we can also go through some of the add value that you get with procuring your licenses through Valto. So one of those things I mentioned was the annual security assessment, which is normally a consultative piece, but we offer that free of charge every year for customers procuring licenses through us. So just reach out and then we can see what we can do to help. So someone says, is licensing per user or on the tenant, and can we have certain users licensed, and are there any free trial licenses? So the license is per user when it's Microsoft Copilot for 365. So it's not like a tenant thing, it's licensed per user account. You can just have certain users licensed. That's probably the best way to actually start to research and investigate and trial Copilot for 365. That's the way that we did it within our organization and how we did it with some of our customers. And then when we've established the add value and things and rolled out some additional training, we then increase the license count across users. One thing I would recommend is that you keep the licenses on the user. You don't start flipping licenses and swapping them, because Copilot is a service that benefits the more you use it. It takes time to crawl through your data via the semantic index. So again, leave that license on, and the user will start to get more benefits. And the more they use it, the more it will adapt to the user as well. Someone's put, what's your favorite, most unexpected way to use Copilot? That's a hard one, to be honest. I think the Copilot for web's quite interesting, because I use it every single day, and I chuck all sorts of stuff into there to get writer's block, and to get all sorts of different results coming back. So that's probably the most creative way, and maybe the most unexpected way that I can use Copilot based on what it comes back with. But again, Copilot web's free version, so just give it a try. It works pretty well. Someone said, what percentage of staff do you recommend having a license? What works best? The way that we tend to do it is maybe start with maybe senior people and technical people within the organization. So it depends on the size of the org, really. But the more that you can get on there, the better. Obviously, Microsoft really like a good solid 70% adoption. But it depends on what type of business you've got as well. If you've got sort of end users who work out in the field on maybe like F3 licenses, for example, they won't benefit as much as maybe people within the admin function of the organization who work maybe in like head office, for example, who are working in your business tools and the Microsoft Office products. So it depends on that ratio. We've got customers on 30% office space, 70% in the field doing physical engineering. But again, AI can be incorporated into their role for what they're doing. So it might not be Copilot, but they'll be using like Azure AI Studio to analyze like cracks in pipes to look and analyze, how likely is this pipe going to fail? Do I need to then create a new job and come back and visit, that kind of thing? So it may not be Copilot, but it could be some form of AI technology that benefits those other users. If there's any more questions that I've missed. Got the licensing one. There is, I've missed one here. So with SharePoint documents having different permissions of who can view, edit, and attach to them, will there be issues with what Copilot can show someone? If you've not got access to the document anyway, Copilot won't bring it back. It'll only bring back documents that you can physically access. So if it resides in a SharePoint where you're not a member of, so it could be like payroll, for example, then you're not going to get those results back. It does rely on permissions. One thing I would do though is actually maybe go through an analysis piece, just look at your data. Perhaps there's some areas that we 100% might need to exclude from Copilot, and again we can apply information protection, so sensitivity labels to some of those sites and documents, so that classes like high confidential, for example. Just making sure I've not missed anything. I think that's all of them. Hang around for 2 more minutes just in case. I think next time we do a webinar, we'll probably have to put some sort of poll in, so we can maybe ask how many people are actually using some form of AI day to day. That would actually be interesting to engage with you to see what your exposure is at the moment, given that things like ChatGPT have been around for a while now and they're easily accessible to the public. Okay, so no more questions have come in. That'll probably bring a close to the webinar. We'll upload this onto our YouTube channel. You should be able to reconsume it there, or hopefully share it with your colleagues. And then keep an eye out for more of our content on Copilot. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff coming out all of the time. So thank you very much for attending. Have a good day.